given some of the news reports yesterday and this morning about what Ron DeSantis, the Russian sympathizer in Florida, what he said at a speech in Iowa. Do you have any interest? Do you have any doubt anymore that the interests of Ron DeSantis, like the interests of Donald Trump, are about establishing a dictatorship in this country that will align with Orban in Hungary, Putin in Russia, and the fascists in this country? Do you have any doubt left at all? Do you realize what DeSantis said the other day? He dismisses Russia's invasion of Ukraine by calling it a, quote, territorial dispute, end quote. A territorial dispute. This son of a bitch is, this is where we are. We have one unannounced candidate, one unannounced candidate for President of the United States. And both of them are displaying unmistakable signs that they are proto-fascists. But to make the statements that DeSantis made, when you think about the people who have been slaughtered, who've had their hands tied and shot in the back of the head by these Russian monsters, and then DeSantis comes out with a statement like this. This is as close to Nazism as we have ever come in this country. It's right here, for Christ's sake. It's in our political system. Territorial dispute. And he says that protecting Ukraine is not a vital U.S. interest. So DeSantis is right there in the vest pocket of Vladimir Putin with Trump. It's just insane. It's insane. DeSantis made this asinine, ignorant, Nazi statement in response to a questionnaire that he got from another Russian sympathizer, a dictator sympathizer. They're not Russian sympathizers. They are Putin sympathizers. They are goddamn Nazis. Tucker Carlson, who also is against our helping Ukraine repel these monsters from Vladimir Putin. On Monday, the Nazi at the Fox sewer, the sewer rat, Tucker Carlson, read DeSantis' statement on his program. And he also shared responses from the Orange Vomit and the Christian zombie, Mike Pence. DeSantis, in his statement, said this, quote, "While the U.S. has many vital national interests, such as securing our borders, addressing the crisis of readiness with our military, achieving energy security and independence, and checking the economic, cultural, and military power of the Chinese Communist Party," notice, "becoming further entangled in a territorial dispute between Ukraine and Russia is not one of them." That's not one of our vital interests. Let me be clear. I've said before, you will never find a more ardent anti-war individual on the airwaves than I am. But being anti-war, being anti-conflict does not mean saying what has happened in Ukraine is a result of a territorial dispute between the democratically elected government of Ukraine and the Nazi son of a bitch Vladimir Putin, the Christian Nazi son of a bitch Vladimir Putin, who now has the backing of a fifth column in the United States. No, that's not an anti-war stance. So I have no hesitation in voicing my full support for any effort to stop this Russian monster, this Nazi son of a bitch, the same way I voiced opposition to the Nazi war criminal, well, he wasn't a Nazi, he was just a war criminal, George W. Bush, when he attacked a civilian population in Iraq. God damn, the people that wind up in leadership positions, I mean, it's just... Now, Trump, the orange vomit, the pig bastard Donald Trump, in his response to the sewer rat Tucker Carlson's questionnaire, he just restated his previous criticism of Biden on Ukraine and argued that, well, it's time for the Russians, Ukrainians to negotiate a deal. Yeah, why don't you broker the deal there, you son of a bitch? Why don't you do it, huh? Donald Jesus Trump? Trump has said he would let Russia take over parts of Ukraine in any settlement that he might broker. Jesus Christ. Trump was asked if opposing Russia, supporting Ukraine, was in the vital interest, national strategic interest of the United States. And of course, this dumb son of a bitch, this ignorant, savage grifter, Donald Trump, answered, no, but it is for Europe, but not the United States. It is for Europe, but not the United States. Trump, you know, DeSantis can't claim ignorance. I mean, he's a what, Harvard, Yale, whatever, graduate. Trump is a goddamn lying grifter. He's a piece of shit that you scrape off the bottom of your shoes when you walk through Queens in New York. That's all Trump is, a punk. So he doesn't know anything about geostrategies where it concerns the horrible situation this planet is in. I hate it as much as you do. I really do, truth seeker. I'm like Rodney King. Can't we all just get along? Well, the quick answer is no. As long as there's religion, as long as the idea of fascism, as long as the idea of top-down leadership exists in the minds of people, no, there never will be peace. Okay. Which means no, we never will all just get along. Okay. If that's the case, what's the next step? What do we do now? Do we sit on our hands and watch while a Nazi monster like Vladimir Putin, a Christian Nazi monster like Vladimir Putin, invades Ukraine and orders his troops to slaughter and execute not just the soldiers up against him, but the civilian population? Kill them all, just like Putin ordered in Syria when he went on the side, and is still on the side, of Bashar al-Assad, the dictator of Syria. Sometimes I have to pause for a moment, take a sip of River Moon coffee, and try to calm down a little bit. Now, these Nazi statements coming from the orange vomit and now his little puppy, Ron DeSantis, these statements are coming while there's a growing rupture in the Republican Party over U.S. commitment to Ukraine. And whether or not we should, what's the phrase, stand up to the Russian dictator? Oh, my God. What did Neville Chamberlain say when he came back from negotiating with Adolf Hitler? Well, I think everything's okay now. We gave him the Sudetenland, so, he's not going to go anywhere else. Everything's okay. Some Republicans who have not been totally absorbed by their party, which is no longer the Republican Party. These are holdouts, like Mitch McConnell. He's a holdout. He still thinks, Mitch McConnell does, that there's a Republican Party. So does Marco Rubio. So does Lindsey Graham. They think that they're members of the Republican Party, when in fact they are not. The Republican Party does not exist. It is now the Christian Fascist Party, in line with other Christian fascists, like Orban in Hungary, like Putin in Russia. But some Republicans, the holdouts, like Mitch McConnell, have argued that a sovereign Ukraine is in the long-term interests of the United States. It's a hell of a way to put it. Maybe in the long-term interests of humanity? Well, no, they're not. A Republican is not capable of that broad an overview. So, okay, in the long-term interests of the United States. But other people who are still in the Republican Party, but the Republican Party not long ago really revered, if that's the right word, the anti-Soviet posture of Ronald Reagan. But you see, Reagan was an anti-Soviet Union when the Soviet Union was a communist, a monster of communism. It isn't anymore. It is a fascist state run by a Christian fascist. That's obvious to you. It's obvious to me. So comparing the Republican Party's stance during the Reagan years to the stance taken by so many Republicans now is bullshit. It's a different world. Reagan was 40 years ago. Jesus. And some members of the Republican Party, I'm sure you can figure out who they are, have been expressing admiration. They admire, especially the sewer rats over on the Fox sewer. They admire Vladimir Putin. Last month in a speech to the Munich Security Conference, Mitch McConnell said this, quote, "Reports about the death of Republican support for strong American leadership in the world have been greatly exaggerated. My party's leadership overwhelmingly support a strong, he said, my party's leaders overwhelmingly support a strong, involved America and a robust transatlantic alliance. Don't look at Twitter. Look at people in power. Look at me and Speaker Kevin McCarthy." End quote. Kevin McCarthy. So McConnell, look at me and look at the little rat shit coward over there on the House side, Kevin McCarthy, who would prostitute his own mother, his wife, his sister, all the females in his family in order to become Speaker of the House. Matter of fact, he apparently did. Mike Pence aligned himself with Mitch McConnell. And Senator Tim Scott, Republican of South Carolina, and Nikki Haley, former UN ambassador, all of them expressed strong support for Ukraine. Mike Pence said this: "The Christian zombie came alive momentarily and said this, quote, when the United States supports Ukraine in their fight against Putin, we follow the Reagan doctrine and we support those who fight our enemies on their shores, so we will not have to fight them ourselves. There is no room for Putin apologists in the Republican Party," end quote, Mike Pence. Mike, you better wake up and realize what your little political party has become, you jack off, thanks to people like you. You did this. Pence, you and the rest of the slime that now make up the Christian Fascist Party. Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. You know, the Progressive Voices Network brings you commercial-free commentary from today's leading progressive radio hosts and pundits, like me, Mike Malloy. 24 hours a day. I'm not your typical old guy from the 80s or the 90s talk radio host, and Progressive Voices is not your typical talk radio network. It's a listener-supported nonprofit with no corporate control whatsoever over our broadcast. So hosts like me, Mike Malloy, are free to rant and scream and carry on about whatever we like. We're often controversial, but we're never boring. Weeknights, 9 p.m. in the East, 6 p.m. in the West on the Progressive Voices Network. Always progressive, always on. I'm Mike Malloy. Keep it lit.